So explain to our audience what exactly happened here. Did Rusty Hardin he says he made a mistake, he didn't intend to close. So now what?
That's a good question. It sounded like he intended to close for the witness and then also for the entirety of their case. It got a little bit muddied and wasn't obvious what he meant. In particular, they definitely have to concern themselves about the witness. So they released the witness, and so that witness is now officially done. Tony Busby, the attorney for the defense, said that they may recall that person if need be, and then they proceeded immediately to move to motions. The motion in particular that Adam mentioned is important. This is a motion for a directed verdict. In effect, they're basically challenging the sufficiency of the evidence, saying that there's not enough evidence here to convict, so they ought to throw this out immediately, and that's what they're currently deliberating.
So far, looking at the totality of this trial and taking into interest what Busby is now requesting, do you think there's enough evidence to meet a burden of proof, Brandon?
It's hard to say. There are a lot of moving parts in the articles, and there are a lot of details that the senators have heard over the past 2 weeks. So obviously what they think and what they've heard and how they connect all the dots is going to be really important. The defense is going to try to say that the prosecution didn't prove that there was any bribery. They didn't prove that there was any real issue inside the Attorney General's office. The prosecution, of course, is trying to make a case that all of the sum of the evidence is important and that you don't have to focus necessarily on the trees here. Focus on the forest, because that's really where the complications are. And the complications generally spell out the notion that this is something that's troublesome inside the AG's office.
The suspected mistress of Ken Paxton was supposed to testify, did not. Can you venture a reason as to why she decided not to?
The likely reason is that she was going to take the Fifth Amendment on most, if not all, of her testimony. So, in effect, it wouldn't necessarily have much by way of evidentiary aid. So, probably it was the case that both parties decided that instead of wasting their time, they would do this. Now, keep in mind that both sides are under a time restriction here. So, they're not allowed just a tremendous amount of time or an endless amount of time. And the House managers were really running up against a limitation. So, the better part of valor for them was to be able to say that we're going to try to have this on the back burner and just push it off because they had other things they had to get done before that.
Yet she was still in the building. I thought that was interesting, right? She's not testifying, but we saw her today. Did that serve any purpose? One has to wonder.
I think it was a bit of a kind of political gamesmanship. I think that she was there in part to be able to show that they were willing to call her and they were hopeful that, that they might be able to tease out some kind of a concession as a result. So exactly what they got for her to not testify is unclear, but definitely her being there changed the nature of how people thought about this, and certainly was one of those things in the toolkit that the attorneys were going to try to hold until the last minute as a kind of surprise witness, and they got there almost.
Helping us analyze some big breaking developments late today in the Paxton impeachment trial. Brandon Rottinghaus, our political analyst, thank you so much for your time. We'll continue to monitor for anything else.
All right, thank you, Brandon.